let's just address the elephant in the room right out of the gate. Yes, this is, believe it or not, a Hearthstone video. Now, I know it's been a long time since I've covered anything Hearthstone related on my channel, but there was a time when I was doing just that. If you look, you can find some old PvE guides here, and there was a time when I was streaming it on Twitch, and I love all card games. I play them all. But I had not played Hearthstone in a long time. The last time that I was playing it semi-seriously at all, Yogg-Saron was still in Standard. When I signed into my Hearthstone account recently to try to pick things back up, I had like Reno lock decks still saved and a whole bunch of things. So it is safe to say that I've not played Hearthstone in a long time, but I had the itch, right? Sometimes we remember things as being a certain way. Sometimes we let reputation get in the way of things, and I thought, you know, I haven't played Hearthstone in a while. They just had a new set come out. Let's go check it out. Let's see what it's like. Legitimately, every set that is in Standard right now is something I have not yet played with. So from an exploration point of view, it's a little bit exciting just to kind of dive in and play with essentially all new stuff that's not, you know, cards from the classic set in Hearthstone. And you know, people that I know and trust had been saying that Hearthstone isn't as bad as it used to be in terms of variants and things like that as of late, and that's in a pretty good spot, and it's pretty well balanced, and I wanted to put that to the test. So I made a decision to reinstall it on my phone. I've been playing it kind of casually, and because I have not played in a long time, I was missing an awful lot of cards. But I found a deck that was working for me. This is a budget rogue deck, and I thought, you know what, I haven't played Hearthstone in a while. Maybe there's other people similar to me that are, you know, picking it back up because of the new expansion. Why don't I do just a quick video on what was working for me if you are a returning player, or maybe you just don't have, you know, a lot of cards at your disposal. So this is my budget rogue list. Now, I will throw the caveat out in that there are some legendary cards in what I'm calling a budget list, but for me as a returning player, these are all legendary cards that I already owned because they're from the classic set, and I'm talking about Edwin Van Cleef, or Van Beef as I like to call him, Captain Greenskin, and Leroy Jenkins. Now, of those three, if you have to have just one and only one, I think Leroy is probably the most important because he represents a large amount of burst in this particular list, but that's because of cards like the Waggle Pick and Shadow Step being able to bounce Leroy back to your hand so that you can play him twice in one turn. That represents 12 burst damage, almost half of a hero's health. So this is essentially a tempo-based rogue. I know rogue is really popular in the Hearthstone meta right now, as I've been kind of doing some research. And this is a list that represents a lot of burst damage and great ways to kind of control the board. This is the exact list that I took from rank 20 to rank 10 with like only 3 losses, I think it was. It was something pretty ridiculous. So it's been very effective for me. That being said, as you start to get higher and higher, you will start to run into what I'm now calling the warrior wall. So I do want to be upfront. This list, at least in my limited experience so far, does seem to struggle against Control Warrior, and Control Warrior ends up being very popular on the ladder at some point. So I am still trying to like work around, figure out what my best way to address that issue is. It might just be making a second deck for when I'm running into Warrior, but I've got a really good win rate of basically against everything else, not Warrior, but Warrior's ability to mitigate your board while also stacking armor to keep them out of burst down potential is a real issue. So usually my game plan is hope that they have a bad opening hand and try to exploit it, because the longer the game goes, I think the more it favors Warrior. So anyway, just wanted to be upfront. This is the list. I will put a deck code in the video description, just like I do with my Legends videos, and we're going to go ahead and play a couple games on it so I can kind of show you how it works in case you are interested in maybe picking Hearthstone back up again, because I'm playing it casually and I'm enjoying it so far. So thought I would share that with you.
Valera versus Anduin.
The light shall bring victory.
So right out of the gate here, we're up against a priest, and We are going first. I was jumping ahead in my head. Typically with this deck, I actually enjoy going second. That seems to be a rarity in Hearthstone, but the coin allows for some really powerful plays as a rogue because it's an easy way to trigger your combo mechanic. And here in the early goings, I'm not sure that I really want any of these. Deadly Poison, I'm tempted to keep because since we don't have the coin, any of our cheap cards that cost 0 or 1, with the exception of Shadow Step because that's played after a creature, but any of these things that can trigger a combo, allowing you to get Evil Miscreant off early is typically okay, so I think I'm actually going to keep this. But if you were to throw this back, I wouldn't blink either. So this being a budget list, there are some additional cards that are traditionally played in the meta rogue list that I just don't own. There's a legendary card, for example, that where you play it and you literally draw your entire deck, and that sounds obscene, and it kind of is, but it's pretty fantastic in a combo-oriented rogue where you're trying to burst somebody down. I actually think we're just going to go ahead and take this. And we're going to do this just because it's a priest, they don't have weapons. One of the things I'm also including in this list is one Acidic Swamp Ooze, because there are some other cards that, again, I don't quite own yet, and there's a fair number of other rogues on the ladder or classes that use weapons. So this is a one of, has been nice. It gives you a nice early threat. It's cheap, so it can help you with combo stuff. I could also see this, for example, being a creature with silence, just to give you some flexibility there. Just ideas if you are on a budget to kind of fill the gaps. And our poor creature has bit the dust here. So we're going to go ahead and do this, but we're not going to play this yet because we want to be able to combo with our Miscreant. We're also, I think, going to pass. Normally if I make a weapon, I just attack, but I think we're going to pass because we want to try to get poison value the following turn. So we're going to go ahead and go with the poison into our Miscreant. This makes us a couple of lackeys, and we got the plus attack.
Here we go.
And the transform one, other lackeys you can get are ones that will discover a spell for you, or there's one that just straight up deals 2 damage, and there's one that will, as a 1-drop, make a 1/1 but summon a random 2-drop. So there are some lackeys that can provide you with an awful lot of value, which is rather nice. And it looks like whatever priest we're playing against is just slow-paced control. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take the backstab here. We're going to swing with our weapon on that, but first we want to play some other cards to get some additional value. So this, for example, costs 1 right now, so we would like to do that. And this lets us find stuff from our deck. That seems rather important as well. We're going to go ahead and play this one over the deckhand, because we'll likely end up playing a Waggle Pick next turn. Get this in, and go like this, just to get that off the board. Now, if you're somebody who played the Elder Scrolls Legends but have never played Hearthstone, Hearthstone only has 1 lane. It's basically the field lane all the time. But unlike Legends, positioning matters in Hearthstone, so you can't actually choose where to place your creature. There will be effects that will hit something and its neighbors, for example. So there are some differences. You cannot mix and match class cards, things like that. In Hearthstone, you just have your 10 classes, and so a rogue, for example, is the only one that has access to cards like Preparation, because that is a rogue-specific card. Now, there are effects in the game where you can get access to other class cards. Rogue, in particular, has like this burgle effect that's on a number of cards where you get class cards from other classes. Right now we're just trying to get a board and start pressuring. Usually the magic number you're trying to aim for is to get your opponent somewhere below 15, because through some combination of Leroy and other damage effects on the board, you can oftentimes burst somebody down. does look like our opponent's just kind of roping out a bit at the moment. So we are going to go ahead and develop the pick, which then makes this have charge. And then there's a number of different things that we could do, but getting the most value out of this makes an awful lot of sense. So we're going to do this and then just get as much damage in as possible, because as I said, anything less than 15 is a good magic number, and that does it. Now it's possible that our opponent's just going to DC out because they, after we played 2 3/3s and set up our board the way they did, maybe they just decided this game wasn't worth playing anymore. But this is still likely what our course of action would have been otherwise. It's just not it's possible it would have not all went straight face. But this will be a victory. So we're gonna do this.
Here we go.
Get a win, and we'll play another game so that we can kind of show off the deck a little bit more. Yay!
Valera versus Uther.
So here we are, going into another game.
With honor.
Watch your back.
This is an interesting mulligan, just because we do have some stuff that is very powerful come around turn 4. Being able to combine pick with Corsair is often a really good thing. However, I don't think we want this in our opener. We'd like to find, again, if possible, something like... Well, our South Sea deckhands are okay in the beginning, but Evil Miscreant and Hench Clan Thug are higher on our list. Also, these are cards that we'll end up likely fetching with Raiding Party at some point anyway. I mean, I could see an argument being made for keeping them, but...
Job's done.
Bit of a bummer that we don't have the coin. Solid turn 2 would be coining into Raiding Party just to kind of flood ourselves up a bit, but instead we'll
Here we go.
take the old, make a knife, get the poke in, set ourselves up for turn 3 we can play the Thug,
Reporting
and then clear this off, make the Thug a little bit bigger.
Here we go.
Well, since we just naturally drew Dread Corsair again, it'd be nice if we could top deck a Waggle pick here. We did not. So this adds 4/4 dragons to our opponent's hand, which is not necessarily ideal for us. However, we don't want that sticking around, so we're going to go ahead and take the backstab here. Now we have a decision to make, because on the one hand, playing the Raiding Party fills our hand with a bunch of juicy stuff. However, it means this doesn't get to buff itself up, but I think that that's worth the trade-off. So we did find a Waggle pick. And we're going to go ahead and wait on playing this, since next turn it's for sure going to be Waggle pick into this. We'll just go ahead and wait. Playing this now and letting it attack next turn is the same as playing it next turn and letting it attack with charge. The only difference is it's kind of safe in our hand, whereas if we play it and the Paladin player were to play an effect that could get rid of it, it would be a bummer. So now we can go ahead and
Blood and blood.
Here we go.
take the path that we'd outlined before, trying to get that damage in while we can. Looks like our opponent is on a more late game dragon build of Paladin here. Now I will say Rush is an interesting mechanic. It's something that I'm you know, a little curious about whether or not it should be something included in Legends. If you're not familiar, Rush is like charge, but instead of being able to attack face, you can only attack opposing creatures. Here we're going to play the greenskin because we don't want this to go away quite yet, and we certainly don't want it to bounce either of our options. It's also just a nice solid 5-4 body for the cost. But we're now reaching the point where we're prioritizing damage a bit more than anything else, because we're getting into the late stages of this game. Our opponent has played a lot of stuff that either adds dragons to their hand or buffs them. Here comes Ziliax. This is, well, my worst nightmare. This is the card for letting your opponent stabilize in this game right now. And I am just not a fan of it. And when I say not a fan of it, what I really mean is not a fan of having to deal with it. It is a real pain. Alright, so I think what we're going to do here is we're going to use prep to reduce the cost of our fan of knives by 3 so that we can cycle. Now sadly it makes our backstab not able to do anything, but we should still have lethal here because we're going to go ahead and deal 2 damage to this to allow this guy to attack for the old 5, and then this can go ahead and attack. And it bounces this back. Now we had a backup one, but we're gonna make our opponent feel like we were like super 200 IQ here, but really we had this one. But as you can kind of see, this is the way the deck kind of plays. Traditionally, you want to try to keep the board clear, and in doing so, then push damage to your opponent until they get to, as I said, like 16, 15, a little bit less than that, and then you have a lot of burst in the deck and you can kind of burn them down. In my experience, Warrior is far and away the hardest matchup, and even if I were to have a non-budget version, I feel like that would probably still be the case, just because they have a insane ability to keep their health total high, or at least effective health because of armor. Outside of that, Rogue seems to have really good matchups across the board, so as long as you're not queuing into Warrior, you're going to have a good time. And anyway, if you're looking to get back into Hearthstone, this is what I've been playing, because I just picked it back up again for the first time in like 2 years. So anyway, if you made it this far, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.